A little bit of sad news before we make our picks for Week 16 in this Christmas weekend slate of football games. Franco Harris, Steelers great. Matt Williamson, my co-host, I'm sure has endless insight being a Pittsburgh guy on the life of Franco Harris. And this is the Immaculate Reception week, too.
Oh, yeah.
Raiders, Steelers. So we'll get into that today. Make our six-pack of picks. We've got tons of playoff implications, including Thursday night preview as well. Jaguars, Jets coming up right now.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson, as always. Thanks for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find us on Twitter. Hit us up for our mailbag weekly segments at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or just say hi or drop a comment on YouTube. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your own football franchise? Well, this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look up Ultimate GM, Ultimate Football GM on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost as well to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game. That's promo code Locked On. Ultimate Football GM in the app store or ultimate-gm.com. This is crazy timing and news, Matt, with the passing too soon of Franco Harris at the age of 72 years old, which this is Franco Harris week. Like, how's this even possible? This is blowing my mind because, it's sad enough. I woke up and I saw the Franco Harris news. It's like, oh man, 72 years old. What? I didn't hear about any, ills or any health stuff with Franco Harris recently, and I know this is the Raiders and Steelers week, but it didn't really dawn on me. It's like, oh my gosh, the timing of this is crazy. So I'm sure this is the biggest story going on in your area up in Pittsburgh.
Oh, I woke up, saw it on my phone, like, oh wow, that's sad, and then I get a shower, come downstairs. All the local news channels have changed programming. I mean, it is now, today is the Immaculate Reflection here in Pittsburgh. I mean, everything has changed. Obviously, they changed the news. It's all that's on the news. I mean, it's amazing how into the Steelers, especially the 70 Steelers, that my hometown is. So, a couple things is, not everyone was aware. The Raiders are coming here Christmas Eve standalone night game because that's the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, Steelers Raiders. I'm 49. I was not born when the Immaculate Reception occurred, but my mom has told stories that she was about halfway through her pregnancy, jumping around like crazy when Franco picks it up. And
I thought you were going to say you were conceived later that evening.
The Immaculate Conception, that would have been. But she thinks that shaped my path in this world. I do know. Well, I don't know, but if he doesn't make that Immaculate Reception, I'm not sure I do this for a living. To be very honest with you, I mean, that changed the whole city. When I was a kid, when I was 4 or 5 years old, it was ingrained in my brain that it's not the Browns, the Bengals, the Oilers back then that you hate the most. It's the Raiders. I mean, it was the best rivalry going in the 70s. Franco, Al Davis, Chuck Noll, Rooney's, Clifford Branch, on and on and on. I've interviewed Franco a few times. He's been all over. It's been Franco week here. He's been all over the radio, all over TV. Frankly, he looked and sounded great. I don't know what happened to him. All I've heard so far is he passed away last night. And a couple little nuggets here is, people might not believe me, but when you land in Pittsburgh's airport and you go down these escalators to go get your bags, and so everyone passes by these two statues. One of them is Franco picking the ball off his shoelace, the Immaculate Reception. And then there's another guy to his right. I didn't know who that other guy was until I was like 35. It's George Washington. And everyone stops and takes a picture with Franco. I would never go down the escalator on the right. I'm like, who's that guy in the old red jacket? Like, that's the founder of our nation, Matt. And I'm like, I didn't know that until like 15 years ago, to be very honest.
You're in Pittsburgh. It's Franco Harris here. Everybody else starting here.
Right. And, just to kind of put an exclamation point on it, is the Steelers asked me 5 years ago, and you can find it on YouTube. They asked me, it's widely known that Joe Green's the best Steeler ever. So they said, Matt, please do a 5-minute video on who you think the second best Steeler is. And I picked Mel Blount. And I have this great long diatribe about why Mel Blount's the second best Steeler. But if you go ask the old school folks that have been with the team a long time, they all say you should have picked Franco. I'm like, I'm still a little bit running backs don't matter, so I couldn't, go down that road. I'm a little young.
Running backs mattered.
They mattered.
You built around running backs. It was all about the running game. Yeah.
But I mean, you'll see it this week. You'll see it during the game. Joe Green will tell you we weren't the Steelers until we got Franco. So the city's devastated. I've interviewed him a few times. I'm sure he doesn't know who I was, but a very respectful and insightful guy.
And if there ever was any doubt, which I'm sure in your mind there is not, it was a catch.
Oh, yeah, dude. No doubt about it.
But, and go ahead.
Some of the rivalry stuff from those 70s Raiders Steelers stuff is unbelievable. Like, I'm not saying it's true, but I got a pretty good indication that there was a playoff game here on the old school AstroTurf, and Al Davis complained to the league that why is it so icy outside the numbers, but not inside the numbers? And nobody would think twice about that. But the reason, as myth goes, but I also know that it's frankly true, is somebody brought a hose to the sidelines to the numbers well before the game to slow down Cliff Branch. They were the bomb throwing, they weren't an inside run team. They were bombs away speed. So, well, you're not quite as fast on ice, Mr. Branch, against Mel Blount. Al Davis used to say, the only man Mel Blount fears is Clifford Branch. Well, not on that day when he couldn't run on the ice. There's all kinds of stuff like that. And unbelievable hits on Lynn Swann. Joe Green runs on the field and carries his dead body off the field, and Jack Tatum and slamming Bradshaw on his head and all kinds of stuff. So you'll probably see a lot of that Saturday night when this game comes around, that rivalry.
Yeah. And I love that old stuff. So I can't wait to see it. And no doubt endless Franco Harris tributes now, which was already going to be very heavy. Right. Franco Harris weekend, and man, the 50th anniversary, the timing is just unbelievable. And looking at this football game, the first of our 6-pack here, Matt, because of all of this and the Christmas Eve night primetime game. I mean, looking at the BetOnline lines here, Steelers favored by 2.5. I mean, Steelers by 1 million.
Yeah. I host The Drive, which you can find on Steelers.com every day, and we always analyze the schedule. And the day the schedule came out, we said, there's no way the Steelers lose this game. I mean, we didn't know that Franco was going to pass away, but we knew his 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception on Christmas Eve, 8 o'clock at home. Tomlin never loses a night game at home, let alone under these circumstances. But the Steelers always play bad against the Raiders, like in my lifetime. I mean, not 70 Steelers. I mean, they always find a way to lose against this team. They're very different teams. I mean, the Steelers are now ball control, no big plays. The Raiders don't have much on defense, but they stop the run reasonably well, which is the key. Kenny Pickett's going to be back, but Waller and Renfro eased into action last week, and they really needed those guys because people were starting to take away Devontae Adams. Can the Steelers stop Josh Jacobs? Can they slow down Max Crosby? I can't pick against the Steelers for our, right now. So I'm going to say they win by 3, and, lots of towels will be flying in Franco's honor.
Oh, Steelers by double digits. Easiest bet of the season for me right here. And look, the Raiders coming out it's almost like the Raiders won their Super Bowl. I've seen numerous clips of the Raiders fans in the stands, winning that game against the Patriots in just ridiculous fashion. This team's been so up and down, and so I think an extremely focused. This is going to be an important game. Win it for Franco, sort of a thing. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Raiders aren't a team that I can bet on, that I feel really good about consistently week to week. Even though they have had an uptick and played a little bit better, they were still really ugly against the Patriots last week, even in that win, and gifted that win instead of going to overtime. So this one's pretty easy for me. Give me the Steelers all day. Can you cover? Can you bracket? Can you do whatever with Devontae Adams? Don't get hit with some big plays. I'm a little bit worried about stopping the run and the way Josh Jacobs has been playing this year, leading the league in rushing. With he'll surpass 1,500 yards in this game. But I think the Steelers will be up to the challenge here. So give me Pittsburgh all the way.
Yeah, I mean, the place will be crazy. The emotions will be high, and I'm sure every commercial break there'll be a Franco highlight or a Raiders Steelers highlight, Madden, Noel, all those guys. So it would be a fun environment, and hopefully the whole nation enjoys it.
Next, we've got major playoff implications, especially Saturday. We're going to stick with the Saturday Christmas Eve games here in our 6-pack of picks, including Jacksonville Jaguars at the New York Jets Thursday night. Coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. Really geeked about this one. Our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, the mobile game Ultimate Football GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM, as young Brian Peacock did, managing your own football franchise, well, your dream can come true. And in this game, it's definitely for you because you can manage every strategic aspect of your team. Play through the season, lead your team to glory, lead your team to multiple seasons, build a 25-year-long dynasty. You're responsible for everything. Of course, making draft picks, hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, the ups and downs of the season, secure some naming rights, get some more cash influx to your team so you can build that monster of a dynasty on Ultimate Football GM. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. So, you can play on the go, play as you want, whenever you want to with this game. Locked On listeners also get a 100% free boost to their franchise, make it a little bit easier to get going and start building that dynasty using promo code Locked On in the game store. Use promo code, that's one word, all caps, Locked On. So make sure you subscribe and check it out today. The promo code is Locked On. Ultimate-GM.com is where you can find the game, or look it up on the App Store or whatever device you have. And that's Ultimate Football GM is the name of the game. Ultimate-GM.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Audible. Audible, releasing a ton of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find an episode from the latest, The League, available as a bonus episode on Locked On NFL, which also happens to be the home on YouTube of Peacock and Williamson. So make sure you're subscribed up to the Locked On NFL channel on YouTube. Narrated by Super Bowl champion and legendary smack talker Richard Sherman and sports broadcaster and rising star Taylor Rooks, The League is an 8-part docuseries about the most bizarre, inspirational, and unlikely stories connected to America's favorite sport, pro football. You won't want to miss these untold stories spanning from the 1940s all the way through present day. Each story offers equal parts history, entertainment, and social commentary. Head over to Locked On NFL for a bonus episode of The League, or catch the full series wherever you get your podcasts. Available now. Audible. Get in the game. Looking at this matchup between those 2021 first and second overall picks, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. Mike White had won that job, but he's banged up, and on a short week, it doesn't look like he's going to get back and be able to play in this game. The line here is even, which is very interesting, and thanks to the folks at BetOnline for sponsoring the podcast, and we always find our lines at BetOnline. It's a pick'em game here. The Jaguars clearly, I think, are playing the best football, are getting the best quarterback play, but that little home field bump for the Jets, is that enough for you?
Really torn on this one. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad it's a standalone game that we'll all be focusing on. I am so impressed with Lawrence, and I think he's the next great one, as many do. And I think one of his best attributes is he's going to take what you give him, and that's rare for a young guy. Oh, today's going to be an Evan Ingram day. Last week's a Zay Jones day. It's always kind of a Kirk day, but the Jets don't give you anything. Their corners are so good. Their pass rush is so good. Short week at home. I think the key is going to be, will Lawrence and especially Zach Wilson be patient and be happy punting and maybe the first 1 to 15 wins? I mean, I think it's going to be a very low scoring game. Jets don't run the ball well at all, but they're kind of equal teams. Jags are playing better. They have the better quarterback, but the short week at home thing makes me take the Jets.
Yeah, short week at home, not great. It's probably going to be cold, but doesn't look like crazy
Yeah.
weather or anything like that in New York. I think it's easier to go to cold weather and play than to go to Florida, to be honest with you, in December.
Maybe.
Be used to cold weather and go to like something really warm and muggy. If it is, warm at that time of year in Florida, but it's not that tough of a trip. I just really like the Jaguars
I do
here.
too.
And so if it's a pick 'em, I just think the Jaguars can win this game. I don't like betting on the away Thursday night teams, but man, I just haven't seen anything from Zach Wilson. I mean, I guess there were signs last week with Zach
Yeah.
Wilson. He started out the game pretty well, and you look at his numbers overall, and they don't look bad. He had 300 yards passing and a couple touchdowns, but some late, really bad throws, bad interceptions. Like Trevor Lawrence, the way he's playing, and I think you laid it out there, which is really interesting, which is part of the growth of Trevor Lawrence, which is part of the growth of a lot of young quarterbacks, is taking the layups and
Mhm.
utilizing things like your tight end. And we're seeing recently a big uptick the last few weeks of usage for Evan Ingram. And I think that's really important for your quarterback. It's important for great quarterbacks. It's especially important for young quarterbacks. So can you take the layups? Can you play within yourself? Then hit the big plays when they're there, and that's what we're seeing a lot of from Trevor Lawrence. So it's a pick 'em. I got to go Jaguars, even though I don't like the short week Thursday road teams. I think this is where we see the Jets start to fall off, and we see the Jaguars really make that push to get into the tournament.
Yeah, I don't have a lot else to add except for the Jags left tackle Robinson is out for the year. Not that he's a superstar, but against this front, that concerns me a little bit. And Zach Wilson did play well. He also is, I think his receivers bailed him out here and there too. I mean, Garrett Wilson is a stud in the
Yeah.
making, and I think that was helpful, but he'll cause problems too. So I
By
think
the
it's
way,
gonna be a
I
really
did
close
love
game.
that they utilized Zach Wilson with the pro day throw. You remember his famous pro day throw where he's rolling left, throws the ball deep into the right?
Yeah,
He made that throw in the last game, so
to
that was good.
almost win the game or
Yeah,
almost put them in
so
position. Yeah.
maybe they should they should game plan around Zach Wilson's pro day because he's such a trick shot artist, and stop asking him to do the easy stuff that he hasn't really developed into yet.
You talk about not taking the layups. I mean, that guy,
Yeah.
you said, it's like, I describe Zach Wilson like he's playing horse, on a basketball court. Like, it has to be nothing but net, or I'm going to shoot it from the third row, or I'm going to get up on the porch and make this hoop instead of just taking the layup. Like you make it so much harder than it has to be.
Oh, no doubt. And we're seeing it from Justin Fields. We're seeing it from a lot of young quarterbacks. So it's not
Mhm.
just Zach Wilson, but the other quarterbacks we're starting to see that growth in year two. Haven't quite seen that yet from Zach Wilson.
Yeah, this will be a good game.
It'll be fun. I always like the storylines of the draft picks, and I wonder
Yeah,
if Zach Wilson's got that chip on his shoulder. I should have been the number one overall pick, that kind of thing. All
I'm
right,
sure there's a link.
yes, tons more games here that have playoff implications, and a lot of these games have especially wild card teams really trying to battle their way in. There's a lot of these games this week, Matt, that have a team that has already secured a playoff spot playing against a team that's really fighting for that playoff spot. And there's one in Minnesota with the 11-3 Vikings coming off their miraculous comeback last week, hosting the New York Giants, the 8-5-1 New York Giants on Christmas Eve, who came off a big win in their own right on their quest for a playoff spot and a wild card berth, beating the Washington Commanders last week. So this is an interesting game. Minnesota favored by 4 at home. The Giants by winning the game last week, gave themselves, I think it's 88% chance to make the playoffs versus what would have been around a 30% chance to make the playoffs if they lost. So a win here, really 9-5-1, puts them in a great spot.
Yeah, these are like the one-score game champions of the world.
It is. You're right.
I mean, they're very different in the way they're constructed. I mean, the Giants would kill for they'd kill for KJ Osborne. I mean, so I don't know. I know the Giants can't exploit a really bad Vikings pass defense. I think that's a really tough environment to play. But boy, I mean, these teams just play one-score games time and time again. I'm going to lay the points here, but I seem to do this every week, and I say the exact same thing. I seem to do this every week, but I'm still going to pick against the Giants because they're going to come back to earth, and they never do. He might be my coach of the year vote. I mean, even over like Sirianni, who's only lost one game. I mean, to be in the playoffs with this bad a roster is rather remarkable in New York.
Just knowing how these teams play, it's going to be a one-score game. Is it a
Mhm.
3-point game or is it a 7-point game, 6-point game,
Right,
something
right.
like that? So I'm going to say it's Vikings by 3, which means I get that extra point if I'm betting on the Giants. I don't think that's a great bet when you're like, okay, I think the road team is going to only lose by 3, but that's the way I feel about this game. So give me the Giants and give me the points.
Not that it's really influencing my pick. I am going to stick with the Vikings, but it is noteworthy. And it kind of goes without saying, but the majority of games this week are going to be a day less, preparation. All these Saturday games, maybe that favors the home team just a little more this week than usual.
And maybe I'm looking too much into the psychology of the game, but the Giants really fighting for that playoff spot, and the Vikings had their big comeback last week and already
Maybe.
secured the North. Maybe it's a letdown game for the Vikings.
Could be. I mean, you kind of said that about the Raiders too. I mean,
Right.
it's very possible, especially on a short week. It's fresh on your mind,
The Seattle Seahawks are one of those teams vying for the wild card in the NFC, and in a similar situation, the Kansas City Chiefs, who have clinched a playoff spot at 11-3, are hosting the 7-7 Seahawks. And for teams like the Seahawks and the Lions at 7-7, they've got to make up an extra half a game on teams like Washington and New York, who have that tie on their record.
So we digging into Seahawks Chiefs now? I thought we were going to go.
Sorry, Seahawks
Okay.
Chiefs here, and the Chiefs at
Yeah.
home are favored by
10,
at
I'm looking
BetOnline
at.
for by 10 points. Yeah.
Lockett's out. I think that's really disabling for Seattle. I mean, they haven't run the ball well, but Metcalf and Lockett are really dangerous and complement each other so well. I do think Seattle has come down to earth a little bit, but Kansas City's 32nd in DVOA on special teams. Their defense is well below average. They had kind of a dogfight against Houston last week. Like, they're a little down right now. I mean, to be favored by 10 over a respectable team seems like a lot, but I'm still going to lay it in Kansas City. I don't like it though.
Yeah, I don't like it either. The Kansas City could definitely blow out the Seahawks, but the Seahawks just play too good, and I think they play to their opponents in a lot of ways. And their 7-7 record would be testament to that. 10 points, just a little much here for the Seahawks. I think they keep it a little bit closer. Of course, the Chiefs are favored by a reason, but give me 10 points here for those Seattle Seahawks, even on a road game here Saturday, Christmas Eve. Give me Seattle, and I'll take those points.
Yeah, I certainly see that side of it. I wouldn't touch it. I think Seattle can certainly keep it close. I don't love how Kansas City's playing right now.
All right, next, the rest of our six-pack for Week 16. Talked about another 7-7 team in the NFC, the Detroit Lions. There is Eagles and Cowboys. Gardner Minshew leading those Eagles. Can they clinch the 1 seed with their backup quarterback and an injured Jalen Hurts? Next. This holiday, find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from, it's easy to find a new favorite single-barrel bourbon, or maybe that mezcal, or just a nice bottle of bubbly, something you want to bring over for the holidays, or the perfect gift for everyone on your list with some help from a friendly guide if you need it. And all with the confidence of knowing you found something special for the lowest price. Love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery is available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Make sure you drink responsibly and be 21. This is your team, Matt. You have become the official driver of the Restore the Roar. Is that what they say over there in Detroit with the, with the Detroit Lions? They
roaring
are
into the playoffs.
And look, the Panthers at 5-9 aren't in a great spot, but they're not mathematically eliminated either in that division. In the NFC South, Detroit on the road favored, according to BetOnline, by 2.5.
I've done so much Panthers research in the last week because that's who the Steelers just played. And I have great respect for the Panthers defense, but it didn't come to play last week. But the whole key to stopping Carolina is just stopping the run. And they don't have dynamic backs, but they run and run and run and run and run. Can the Lions defense do that? I understand it's improved, but that's what it has to be to win this game. I'm going to say yes. I think they sell out to stop the run. I really like how Goff and that offense are playing. So I will take the Lions here. Obviously weather's not going to be an issue in Carolina. So, I always kind of worry about the Lions if the weather's going to be bad.
This Detroit Lions team is hot. They're playing better on defense. They can score on the offensive side of the ball. They started out 1-6, but they're 6-1 since. This is a different team than we saw at the beginning of the year, and I'm going to treat them as such. And I think they're going to win this one by a wide margin. So I'm giving up the 2.5 easy, and they're going to win by much more than a field goal on Saturday.
The more I think about it, the more I think more comfortable I am laying the points and that they could win this thing by double digits.
Let's stick with the NFC theme here with the playoff teams and teams fighting their way in. The Commanders have that extra half a game at 7-6-1 over the Seahawks and the Lions at 7-7, but they're in San Francisco facing the 49ers this week and the best defense in the NFL. The Niners, according to BetOnline, favored by 7 points at home here at 10-4. They clinched the West last week. The Commanders lost a tough one against the Giants last week, and the Commanders still have to do some work. Even though they have that half game and that tie on their record, this might not be the greatest week for Taylor Heineke and the Commanders offense, though, to get one of those wins. So they might have to win a couple games down the stretch after this game. I like the 49ers, and from what I've seen recently with the Niners, and I've kind of been not as bullish on the Niners just because some of the lines I'm thinking, oh man, rookie quarterback, 7th rounder. I've seen enough from Brock Purdy. He's been awesome. And the train is still rolling for the 49ers, and teams just can't score them. So to me, I think they win this one by 7 or more. I really like the Niners on paper here.
I tend to agree. I mean, I like Washington's weapons or pass catchers, and they're going to try to run the football a lot. Still, I think Heineke throws a couple to the other team and forces things, and this team's so aggressive, and lackluster arm and a big heart of Heineke could turn into a pick 6 or 2. Just and a lot of hits, fumbles in the pocket. And I think the Niners obviously cause problems offensively, who guards Kittle and all those guys. I don't know that I'm totally on board with Purdy yet, but he has been really, really good. And I don't see a distinct quarterback advantage here.
I think one of the comps originally for Brock Purdy was some Taylor Heineke to him.
I can see that, yeah.
A little bit, kind of make some plays, something to him, some toughness and some grit. And so, yeah, there's definitely, I don't think, you would think, oh, a rookie 7th round pick, the other team's going to have a quarterback advantage. I don't necessarily think that's the case. And so when you look at the rest of the teams, I just really like the 49ers in this one. Chase Young, though, do we have any hard information on Chase Young finally coming back?
I think he's scheduled to play. He's off IR. So that was a couple weeks ago, but he hasn't dressed. Watching that game Sunday night, they implied that, next week he'll be back. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Latest I'm seeing is they want him back. They're still not sure yet, so we'll see.
Okay, we'll see how much he practices this week.
That might help. I don't think that would change it completely for me, but that would absolutely help the Commanders down the stretch. And you want him to be, 100% healthy and be, a beast off the edge for you, which we haven't really seen in his career. So I don't know if it should make that much of a difference yet anyway, because, he's shown flashes, but he hasn't been quite that guy yet. And partially because, coming off a major injury too now.
Yeah, I would bet he plays 20 snaps on 3rd downs, that type of thing.
Gardner Minshew and the Philadelphia Eagles are at the Dallas Cowboys with a chance to clinch the 1 seed in the NFC with a win. Gardner Minshew just has to win 1 game, even if he plays out the rest of the regular season. Can he do it against the Cowboys in their house at the Star? Dallas at home favored by 4.5.
I'll take the points. I mean, if you're going to give the Eagles 4.5 against anyone, and I have great respect for Hurts, that's not a knock on him, but I think Minshew's more than adequate behind a phenomenal offensive line. Dallas has stumbled a little bit lately. The Eagles are phenomenal with turnover differential, causing turnovers, protecting the ball. Dak's been turning it over here and there. I'll take the points, but I think Dallas wins the game like 21-20, but I think the Eagles stick around and make this really close.
Yeah, I don't think I'd swing it all the way to 4.5 for me.
Yeah, right.
And I think Gardner Minshew is one of the better backups in the league, and there's still a lot of talent on that team on both sides of the ball. Good offensive line, they can still run the ball, and Gardner Minshew is a professional quarterback and get the ball out to the playmakers there, which they have with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I like the Eagles to clinch here and win this one straight up, but definitely taking the points here at 4.5 in Dallas.
100%.
Thanks, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen. Make sure you check out the rest of what the network has to offer. Your team is covered on the Locked On Podcast Network. Matt and I will be back previewing the rest of still some really good ones, playoff implications for both Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, right here, Peacock and Williamson.